breathing, walking, and letting go. Our breath is a wonderful vehicle to bring us back to our body, our feelings, and our mind. We don't need a lot of time if we know how to use mindful breathing. Breathing is something we do every day, but most of us don't breathe mindfully, so we can't go back to our body and our feelings. Our practice is always to go back to the present moment, to the here and the now. Only in the here and the now can we touch life deeply. Learning how to live deeply each moment of our daily life is our true practice. Mindful breathing can always bring us back to the here and the now. If we lose our mindful breathing, we will lose the present moment. We can be mindful in our walking, washing, and eating as well. There are many ways to come back to the here and the now and to touch life deeply, but they all involve mindful breathing. If we're anchored in our mindful breathing, we can practice any time. Otherwise, we risk missing our lives that are lived in the here and now. Mindful breathing is the basis of mindfulness practice. When we practice mindful breathing, we bring our mind back to our body and establish our true presence. The energy of mindfulness has the element of friendship and loving kindness in it. We can't be a friend to ourselves or to someone else when we're not truly present. We can't be a friend until we have developed some compassion. In practicing mindful breathing, we become a real friend to our body, our emotions, our mind, and our perceptions. Only once we've developed a real friendship with ourselves can we effect some transformation within these different realms. If we want to reconcile with our family or with friends who have hurt us, we have to take care of ourselves first. If we're not capable of listening to ourselves, how can we listen to another person? If we don't know how to recognize our own suffering, it won't be possible to bring peace and harmony into our relationships. Recognizing and calming painful feelings. Each of us has a certain amount of illness in our body or in our mind. The best way to heal is to begin by stopping everything and being totally with the present. This lets our body, our mind, heal itself. When we pay attention to our breathing, our in-breath and out-breath become peaceful and relaxed. When we walk with attention and we just walk without thinking or being carried away by anything, we already begin to heal. When our mind is carried away by strong pain, it helps to go back to our relaxed and peaceful in-breath and out-breath. Eventually, when our painful feeling comes back, we accept it as it is, instead of letting it carry us away and make us more agitated. We don't fight the painful feeling because we know it is part of us, and we don't want to fight ourselves. Pain, irritation, and jealousy are all part of us. As they arise, we can calm them by going back to our in-breath and out-breath. Our peaceful breathing will calm those strong emotions. When an emotion becomes calmer, we can see the roots of our suffering and see that those who cause us pain are also suffering. Usually, when we suffer, we think we're the only person who suffers and that the other person is very happy. But in fact, it's likely that the person who hurts us also has a lot of pain and doesn't know how to handle his strong emotions. Breathing with awareness, we generate our energy of mindfulness, and we can have insight into how to handle our suffering and that of the other with compassion. When we're hurt, there are two ways to think. We can think in a way that makes us angrier and want to retaliate, or we can try to calm ourselves, touch our compassion and understanding, and give ourselves a peaceful mind. This way helps us see that the other person also suffers, and then our anger will dissipate. Deep relaxation. If our body isn't peaceful, if we have too many strong emotions, then our breathing can't be peaceful. When we practice the exercise of mindful breathing, we notice our breathing becomes calmer, more profound, more harmonious, and the tension in our breathing is released. Breathing mindfully takes our mind back to our breath, and if we continue, to our whole body. We go back to our body and reconcile with it. We get to know what's going on in our body, the wrongs we have done, the conflicts we're having, and we'll know what to do and what not to do in order to be on good terms with our body. With mindful breathing, we come to recognize our body as our home. We might say, breathing in, I'm aware of my body. Breathing out, I smile to my whole body. It's very nice to recognize our own body and smile to it. If we have 10 or 15 minutes, we can try the healing practice of deep relaxation. To do this, we find a comfortable position, ideally lying down, and come home to our breath. Breathing in, I'm aware of my in-breath. Breathing out, I'm aware of my out-breath. We can lie down and just breathe in and out and enjoy the presence of our body. We give our body a chance to be there without doing anything. This is total relaxation, the practice of love directed to our body. We begin to pay attention to the whole body and then to different parts of the body. Breathing in, I'm aware of my whole body. Breathing out, I release all tension in my body. We can start with the head and finish with the toes, or we can begin with the toes and work upward. We use the fully conscious mind to recognize that a certain part of the body is there. We recognize and embrace it with the energy of mindfulness and allow that part of the body to relax and release the tension. Then we begin to practice being mindful of each part of our body. Breathing in, I'm aware of my brain. Breathing out, I smile to my brain. We might take one in-breath and out-breath for each part of the body. Or we might give each part 10 in-breaths and out-breaths. We go through all the parts of our body. We practice scanning our body with a kind of beam of mindfulness. Breathing in, I'm aware of my eyes. Breathing out, I smile to my eyes. I allow my eyes to release the tension because there is often tension in the eyes. That's why smiling is very good, because it relaxes our face, and we can send that smile to different parts of our body. In our face there are hundreds of muscles, and when we're angry or afraid, those muscles hold a lot of tension. But if we know to breathe in and be aware of them, and breathe out and smile to them, we can help them release the tension. Our face can be completely different after one in-breath and out-breath. A smile can bring a miracle. I allow my eyes to release the tension, and I send my smile to my eyes. Just become aware of your eyes and smile lovingly to them. Our eyes are so wonderful. Then we come to our ears. Breathing in, I am aware of my ears. Breathing out, I smile to my ears. When we come to our shoulders, we practice, breathing in, I am aware of my shoulders. Breathing out, I smile to my shoulders. We help our shoulders to relax and to not be stiff. When we come to our lungs, we embrace our lungs. Breathing in, I am aware of my lungs. Breathing out, I smile to my lungs. They work so hard, and I don't give them enough clean air. Breathing in, I am aware of my heart. Breathing out, I smile to my heart. My heart beats day and night. Now I have to stop smoking and drinking alcohol because I really care for my heart. So we go through our body. We scan our body with the light of mindfulness, recognizing, embracing, smiling to it. We take time, perhaps 10, 15, or 20 minutes to scan our body slowly with the energy of mindfulness. Smiling to each part, we help that part release the tension. When we come to a part of the body that is ailing, we can stay longer and spend time recognizing and embracing it. We use the energy of mindfulness to embrace it, to smile to it, and to help it release the tension. When there is a physical pain, our mindfulness will let us know it is only a physical pain. And with that kind of awareness, we are more relaxed and can heal more quickly. No distinction between means and ends. With mindful walking, our steps are no longer a means to arrive at an end. When we walk to the kitchen to serve our meal, we don't need to think, I have to walk to the kitchen to get the food. With mindfulness, we can say, I am enjoying walking to the kitchen. and each step is an end in itself. There is no distinction between means and ends. There's no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. There is no way to enlightenment. Enlightenment is the way. Every time we make a mindful step, we are engaged in an act of enlightenment. We can be enlightened about the fact that we are making a step. Each step can have beauty in it. Washing a dish can be an act of enlightenment. It's delightful to wash the dishes. Taking care of painful feelings. When you know how to take good care of your body with your mindfulness, you can begin to enter the domain of feelings. To meditate on the feelings means to be aware of each feeling that is arising, whether that feeling is pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, or mixed. Before we take care of the painful feelings, we can first learn how to take care of the feelings that are not painful. The Buddha advises us to create the feeling of joy and happiness in order to nourish ourselves before we deal with the painful feelings. Just as a surgeon may judge that a patient is too weak to undergo surgery and recommends that the patient first get some rest and nourishment so she can bear the surgery, so we need to strengthen our foundation of joy and happiness before focusing on our suffering. We can start with joy. Joy and happiness are always there as seeds in our consciousness. Breathing in, I'm aware of the feeling of joy in myself. Breathing out, I smile to the feeling of joy that is in myself. Breathing in, I'm aware of the feeling of happiness in myself. Breathing out, I smile to the feeling of happiness in myself. Leaving behind. How do we bring about the feelings of joy and happiness that we need in order to be strong enough to deal with our suffering? The first thing to do is to release, to let go. Joy is born from letting go, leaving behind. Suppose we live in a big city like New York or Paris, and we suffer from the noise, the smoke, the dust. Perhaps we want to flee to the countryside for the weekend. It may take an hour to leave the city behind, but if we can do it, it's worth it. When we come to the country, we feel the fresh air. We see the hills, the trees, the clouds, the blue sky, and we feel so happy that we've been able to leave the city behind and experience this beauty. But it's important to be aware that we won't be able to keep that joy and happiness for a long time. In a few weeks, we'll want to go back to Paris or New York. We've all experienced this. We're very happy for the first few days in the countryside, but we don't have the capacity of nourishing and keeping the joy and happiness for a long time. We suffer. We long to go back. We believe that our home is there. Home, sweet home. So when we go back to Paris or New York, we also feel joy and happiness, because we're back in our home, only to suffer later on. So we go back and forth like that. In our modern society, many people have a second home, so they can flee their situation for some time and then go back. Joy and happiness are impermanent. They need to be nourished in order to stay longer. If we don't know the art of nourishing our joy and happiness, they will die. After some time, we lose our capacity of enjoying the joy and happiness that are available. That joy and happiness can be nourishing and healing, but they're not deep enough to transform the deep suffering that's lying down in the bottom of our consciousness. Beneath the surface. On the surface of the ocean, there is stillness, but underneath there are hidden currents. If our practice has not been able to push down to the block of suffering that has been handed down to us by our ancestors, our parents, then we can enjoy that thin layer of stillness only for a period of time. From time to time, the block of suffering underneath will emerge. So to cling to that kind of joy and happiness is not enough. We begin to have problems, and we don't know what our real problem, our real suffering is. Our suffering may be the suffering of our father that he has handed down to us as part of our heritage. The suffering that our mother wasn't able to transform, she transmitted to us. With superficial practice, we can only get the kind of stillness, joy, and happiness that are superficial. That kind of practice is not strong or effective enough to transform the big suffering down at the base of our consciousness. Because we don't know the nature of our suffering, our consciousness isn't able to shine and recognize the suffering that's hidden in the depths of our unconscious. That's why we blame this and that for our suffering. There are people or issues we think to be the cause of our unhappiness. If we live in a family or a community, we may think, my family doesn't practice respecting the environment enough. Or, this community still has some discrimination against gays and lesbians, and so on. There are many issues like that, social issues. And since we don't know what our real suffering is, we have the tendency to blame it on things like that, which we consider to be the cause of our unhappiness. That is why we have to go home to ourselves, to try to recognize our suffering and embrace it. To do this, we may have to suffer some. In Asia, there's a vegetable called bitter melon. The Vietnamese word for bitter is co. Co also means suffering. What is bitter is suffering. They call it by its true name. If we're not used to eating bitter melon, we may suffer when we try it. Chinese medicine believes that bitterness is good for your health. Although it's bitter, when we eat it, we feel fresh and cool. There are people who want to change its name to refreshing melon. But although it's refreshing, it's still bitter. Those of us who eat bitter melon enjoy it. We find that its taste of bitterness is good. It's bitter, but it's delicious, and it's doing us good. Letting go. One day the Buddha was sitting in the forest with a number of monks when a peasant came by. He had just lost his cows. They had run away. He asked the monks whether they had seen his cows passing by. The Buddha said, "No, we haven't seen your cows passing through here. You may want to look for them in another direction." When the farmer had gone, the Buddha turned to his monks, smiled, and said, "Dear friends, you should be very happy. You don't have any cows to lose." One practice we can do is to take a piece of paper and write down the names of our cows. Then we can look deeply to see whether we're capable of releasing some of them. We may have thought these things were crucial to our well-being, but if we look deeply, we may realize that they are the obstacle to our true joy and happiness. I remember a businessman in Germany who came to a retreat and laughed so much when he listened to the story of releasing the cows. I invited him to come back, but he said he was too busy. He was a businessman and had to go to Italy for business and had many things to do, so he said goodbye. The next day I saw him sitting in the audience. I was surprised. He told me he was halfway to Italy when he made a U-turn. He was able to release a cow he'd thought he had to hold on to. He was quite happy. Mindfulness. The first source of joy and happiness is letting go. But just with letting go, we'll only have short-lived, superficial happiness. The second source of our happiness is mindfulness. Suppose we're standing with a group of people contemplating the sunrise. If our mind is preoccupied with our projects and our worries, with the future or the past, we can't really be there to contemplate and deeply enjoy the beautiful sunrise, because mindfulness is lacking. If we go home to our in-breath and out-breath and practice breathing deeply, we can bring our mind entirely to the present moment. We can free ourselves from the past, from the future, from our projects, and our body and mind will be one. Mindfulness helps us to be fully present in order to witness, contemplate, and enjoy deeply the scenery of the sunrise. Suppose a friend who has come a long way to visit is having a cup of tea with us. Mindfulness helps the time we spend with her to be a time we won't forget. We're not thinking of anything. We're not thinking of our business, our projects. We just focus our attention on this moment when we're with our friend. We're fully aware that she is there, and that we can sit with her and enjoy a cup of tea. Mindfulness helps us to taste the joy of each moment very deeply. There's a small distinction between joy and happiness. Suppose we travel across the desert and run out of water and become very thirsty. Suppose we see an oasis in front of us. We know that there will be trees and a lake from which we can drink. That awareness brings us joy. We know we will have the opportunity to rest and drink the water. That feeling is called joy. When we arrive at the oasis and we sit in the shade of the trees, kneel down, cup our hands and drink the water, that is happiness. Joy has something of the element of excitement in it. If we're in physical pain during sitting meditation, walking meditation, or deep relaxation, we're not doing it right. We don't have to suffer because of meditation. It's not hard labor. Meditation should bring us joy and happiness as nourishment. If we get enough of that joy and happiness, we'll be strong enough to handle the blocks of pain, the sorrow, and the despair within us. Brushing our teeth, cooking our breakfast, walking to the meditation hall, everything we do, every step, every breath should bring joy and happiness to us. Life is already full of suffering. We don't need to create more. Letting the Buddha breathe. Several years ago, I was in Seoul, South Korea. The police had arranged things so that we could have a walking meditation in the city. They had cleared the way. When the time came to lead the walking meditation, I found it very difficult to walk because hundreds of cameramen were closing in. There was no path to walk at all. I told the Buddha, "Dear Buddha, I give up. You walk for me." The Buddha came right away, and he walked. The path became clear. After this experience, I wrote a series of practice poems that can be used any time, but especially in those times when walking or breathing is challenging. Let the Buddha breathe. Let the Buddha walk. I don't have to breathe. I don't have to walk. The Buddha is breathing. The Buddha is walking. I enjoy the breathing. I enjoy the walking. Buddha is the breathing. Buddha is the walking. I am the breathing. I am the walking. There is only the breathing. There is only the walking. There is no one breathing. There is no one walking. Peace while breathing. Peace while walking. Peace is the breathing. Peace is the walking. In the beginning, we may believe that there must be someone in order for the breathing to be possible. There must be someone in order for the walking to be possible. But in fact, the walking, the breathing, is enough. We don't need a walker. We don't need a breather. We can just notice that there is walking going on. There's breathing going on. Think of the rain. We are used to saying the rain is falling. This is quite funny, because if it's not raining, it's not falling, and then it's not the rain at all. So the rain is the falling itself. We don't need a rainer. We just need the rain. When we say the wind is blowing, it's equally funny, because if it's not blowing, it's not the wind. We don't need a blower. So rain or wind is enough. It's the same with walking. What I consider to be the Buddha walking is just the walking, but it's a high quality of walking. Because that walking is enjoyable, it's mindful walking. There's a lot of peace and joy. The Buddha is that breathing. The Buddha is that walking. Because in that walking, there's a lot of peace and joy. It's mindful walking.